If you've ever closed a Harry Potter book and then sat in a cinema seat watching the film version, wondering whether the screenwriters actually read the same story you did, then welcome. You are exactly where you need to be right now. Because today we are diving deep into the 10 worst deviations from J.K. Rowling's books in the Harry Potter film adaptations. And some of these changes are going to make you genuinely angry all over again, even if you haven't thought about them in years. Now look, I want to be fair before we get into this. Adapting a book to screen is genuinely hard. You're taking hundreds and sometimes thousands of pages of dense, layered storytelling and compressing it into a 2-hour runtime. Sacrifices have to be made. Every filmmaker who takes on a beloved book series knows they're walking into a minefield. But there's a difference between a necessary omission and a change that actively damages the story or confuses the audience. And the Harry Potter films, as wonderful as many of them are, committed both kinds of sins. Some cuts were understandable, others were baffling, and a few were just outright bad decisions that undermined years of careful storytelling. So let's get into it, starting with number 10, and we're building toward the big ones, so stay with me here. Number 10 is the handling of Snape's character across the entire film series. Now this one might surprise you because Snape's storyline in the films is actually pretty well known, and Alan Rickman's performance is rightly celebrated. But the problem isn't what they showed. It's what they left out. In the books, Snape is genuinely horrible to students in ways that go beyond strict or intimidating. He is cruel. He humiliates children. He shows clear favoritism. He says things to students, particularly Neville Longbottom and Hermione Granger, that would get a real teacher fired immediately. That darkness is essential because it makes his eventual redemption genuinely complicated. It forces you as a reader to hold two things in your head at once: that this man did terrible things, and that he also sacrificed everything for love. The films softened Snape considerably. They kept his coldness but stripped away much of his genuine cruelty, which means that when his backstory is revealed in the Deathly Hallows, his redemption arc lands as simply heroic, rather than as the morally complex, bittersweet tragedy it was in the book. The films accidentally made Snape too easy to love, and in doing so, they lost the point. Number 9 is the Marauders and the map. In Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry receives the Marauders map from Fred and George Weasley. The film does a decent job of introducing it, and it becomes a useful plot device. But here's what the film completely skips. The map was created by Harry's father James Potter and his 3 best friends, who went by the nicknames Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. These nicknames correspond to Remus Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, Sirius Black, and James himself. In the book, learning this is a profound moment for Harry. It deepens his connection to his father and makes the map something emotionally significant rather than just a cool magical gadget. The film never establishes this connection clearly. And then, in Goblet of Fire, Harry recognizes Peter Pettigrew on the map without the film ever explaining how he knows who Wormtail is or why seeing that name would mean anything to him. For book readers, it makes sense. For everyone else, it just creates a gap that the film quietly hopes you won't notice. The map deserved better because the story behind it deserved better. Number 8, and this one genuinely baffles me every time I think about it, is the complete failure to explain why Harry had to keep returning to the Dursleys. For 7 years of films, Harry Potter dutifully goes back to Privet Drive for the summer. And for people who only watch the movies, there is never a satisfying explanation for why. You'd think after first year it would be obvious to everyone, including Dumbledore, that sending Harry back to people who despise him and lock him in a cupboard is a terrible idea. Plenty of magical families, the Weasleys being the obvious example, would have taken him in without a second thought. In the books, Dumbledore explains this carefully. Lily Potter's sacrifice created a powerful protective enchantment, but that protection was bound to the blood of her closest living relative, her sister Petunia. As long as Harry could call the place where Petunia lived his home, he was protected from Voldemort in a way no magical dwelling could replicate. That's not just world-building flavor. That's a crucial piece of plot logic that explains a significant aspect of Harry's entire childhood. The films just skip it, leaving a gaping question mark that quietly undermines the narrative for anyone who hasn't read the source material. Number 7 is the victory over Voldemort in Deathly Hallows Part 2. Okay, I know some people love how this scene looks on screen. Visually, it is striking. But filmmakers made a choice here that fundamentally changes the meaning of the moment. In the book, Voldemort's defeat happens in the Great Hall, surrounded by survivors of the battle, students, teachers, and fighters from both sides. When he falls, his body simply collapses like any ordinary dead person. He is Tom Riddle, a man, and in death he looks like one. The quiet horror of that is the point. The most feared dark wizard in history ends up as a frail, empty shell of a human body on the floor. It is witnessed by everyone. There is no ambiguity. He is gone. In the film, Harry and Voldemort chase each other around the castle in a private duel that the other characters somehow miss, and then Voldemort crumbles into a shower of ash and floats away. It looks cinematic, but think about what that actually means for the story. If no one witnessed Voldemort fall, if no body was left behind, the remaining Death Eaters have absolutely no proof their master is truly defeated. In the book, that proof is lying right there on the ground. The film's dramatic choice accidentally created a logical problem that the book elegantly avoided. Number 6 brings us to the Gaunt family and the missing memories from Half-Blood Prince, and this one is a genuine tragedy in terms of adaptation. In the book, a huge portion of Half-Blood Prince is devoted to Dumbledore and Harry exploring a series of memories about Voldemort's past. You see his mother, Merope Gaunt, a woman from a decayed, pure-blood family who fell into despair and essentially used a love potion to trap a Muggle man into marriage. You see the house Voldemort was born in, the circumstances of his abandonment, his time in the orphanage, and the early signs of his dark nature. These memories aren't just interesting backstory. They are the foundation of Dumbledore's theory about the Horcruxes, and they explain, with real emotional weight, how Tom Riddle became Voldemort. The film stripped nearly all of this out, keeping only 1 or 2 memories and spending the rest of its runtime on teenage romance subplots. The result is a Half-Blood Prince adaptation that many fans consider the weakest in the series, precisely because it sacrificed the most important intellectual and emotional content of the book in favor of lighter material. Number 5 is what happened to Peter Pettigrew, or rather, what didn't happen to him. This one genuinely stings because it involves one of the most quietly powerful moments in the entire book series. In Prisoner of Azkaban, when Harry chooses to spare Pettigrew's life rather than let Sirius and Lupin kill him, Dumbledore tells Harry that this was a meaningful act. He says that saving a life creates a bond, and that Pettigrew will one day owe Harry a debt that Voldemort himself cannot override. It sounds like foreshadowing, and it absolutely is. In Deathly Hallows, when Harry and his friends are captured and brought to Malfoy Manor, Pettigrew hesitates for just a moment when Harry reminds him that he saved his life. That hesitation costs him everything. His silver hand, the one Voldemort gave him, turns on him and kills him, because even the slightest mercy toward Harry is apparently intolerable to the magic bound into that gift. It's a devastating payoff to a thread that was set up 4 books earlier. In the films, Pettigrew is simply stunned during the escape from Malfoy Manor, and then he's never mentioned again. No debt, no hesitation, no consequence, just a loose end dropped and forgotten. Number 4 is the revelation of Barty Crouch Jr., and this is where the Goblet of Fire adaptation really stumbles. The entire mystery of that film hinges on figuring out who put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire, and why. The reveal that the real Mad-Eye Moody had been replaced all year by Barty Crouch Jr. using polyjuice potion, is supposed to be a genuine gut punch. But the film does very little work to establish who Barty Crouch Jr. actually is. In the book, his background is revealed through Dumbledore's Pensieve, where Harry watches the trial of Barty Crouch Jr. and sees the elder Crouch condemn his own son to Azkaban. You understand the history, the betrayal within that family, and the complex circumstances that led to the escape. The film skips or glosses over most of this, so when the mask comes off, viewers who haven't read the book are left with a villain they barely understand. The mechanics of how he escaped, how he took over Moody's identity, and what his actual plan entailed, are all handled so briefly that the resolution feels far less satisfying than it should. Number 3 is the breakup between Harry and Cho Chang in Order of the Phoenix. And this is a change that seems minor until you realize how much it damages both characters. In the book, Harry and Cho's relationship falls apart for genuinely believable teenage reasons. They're grieving in different ways. Cho is still processing Cedric's death. Harry is struggling with guilt and anger, and they keep saying the wrong things to each other at the wrong times. The final breaking point comes when Cho's friend, Marietta Edgecombe, betrays Dumbledore's army to Umbridge. Harry is furious that Cho defends Marietta. Cho thinks Harry is being too harsh, and so their relationship quietly falls apart, not with a dramatic scene, but with a slow drift into mutual exhaustion and incomprehension. It's honest and kind of heartbreaking. In the film, Cho herself is the one who betrays Dumbledore's army to Umbridge, though it's implied she was given Veritaserum and didn't do it willingly. But the damage to the character is still done. Cho goes from a sympathetic figure caught between loyalty to her friend and her principles to someone who gave up the group, even involuntarily. It changes how we see her entirely, and it removes the nuance from the breakup completely. Number 2 on our list is the attack on the Burrow in Half-Blood Prince, and I will go to my grave maintaining that this scene should never have been made. In the book, Harry spends Christmas at the Burrow with the Weasley family. It's a warm, somewhat melancholy chapter that includes a visit from Rufus Scrimgeour, the new Minister for Magic, who tries to convince Harry to publicly side with the Ministry and essentially become a symbol of hope and resilience. Harry refuses. It's an important scene that says a lot about his character and about the political dynamics of the wizarding world at war. In the film, all of that is gone, replaced by a scene where Death Eaters attack the Burrow and Harry chases Bellatrix Lestrange through a field of reeds while the house burns in the background. The house is apparently fine in the next film, so even the dramatic consequence is retconned. But beyond the continuity problem, the scene raises questions it never answers. Why did a handful of Death Eaters attack one of the most protected homes of a known resistance family? What were they trying to achieve? Why did they stop? Why was Voldemort not involved? The sequence exists purely for visual spectacle, and it replaces something that was actually meaningful with something that is incoherent. And that brings us to number 1. The one that, in my opinion, represents the single biggest storytelling failure across the entire film series. The Quidditch World Cup match in Goblet of Fire. Now look, I know what you're thinking. The World Cup? Really? That's number 1. But hear me out, because this isn't just about a missing sports scene. It's about what that decision reveals about the filmmakers' understanding of what they were adapting. In the book, the Quidditch World Cup is extraordinary. It's a gathering of wizards from across the entire world, an event of genuine global significance within the magical community. The match itself between Ireland and Bulgaria is described with electric excitement. Viktor Krum, the Bulgarian seeker who will go on to be a central figure in the plot, is introduced here in a context that shows exactly why he is so legendary. The match ends in spectacular, memorable fashion. And it matters because it establishes the scale of the wizarding world beyond Hogwarts in a way that nothing else in the series had done to that point. The film shows us the campsite before the match, skips the entire game, and then shows us the aftermath, with the Death Eater attack. We hear people shouting about the match, we see flags, and then it's over. Victor Crumb appears later in the film with essentially no context for why anyone would be impressed by him. The sense of wonder and scale that the book delivers so powerfully simply evaporates. This isn't a cut made for time. It's a cut that damaged the very thing it was supposed to be adapting. So there we have it. 10 moments where the Harry Potter films departed from their source material in ways that ranged from frustrating to genuinely damaging. And I want to be clear about something before we wrap up. I love these films. A lot of people love these films. They introduced millions of people to this world and they got so many things right. The casting, the production design, the music, so much of it was inspired. But loving something doesn't mean you can't hold it accountable for its failures. And these were failures. The thing that makes a great adaptation isn't just hitting the plot points. It's understanding what made the original material resonate and finding a way to carry that resonance into the new medium. Sometimes that means changing things. Sometimes it even means improving on the source. But the changes we've talked about today largely did the opposite. They removed depth in favor of spectacle, traded complex character moments for simpler ones, and occasionally introduced new material that created more problems than it solved. With the HBO Harry Potter series currently in development and promising a much more faithful, complete adaptation of all 7 books, there's real hope that some of these missed opportunities will finally be realized on screen. Imagine actually seeing the Quidditch World Cup match done properly. Imagine Voldemort's defeat witnessed by the entire Great Hall with a body left behind as undeniable proof. Imagine the full arc of Pettigrew's debt finally playing out the way Rowling intended. The books set an extraordinarily high bar, they always have. And maybe the most important thing the films taught us is just how high that bar really is. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, drop a comment below and tell me which of these changes bothered you the most personally. Was it one of the ones I mentioned, or is there something I didn't include that you think deserved a spot on this list? Because honestly, there are more than 10 candidates and we could have gone much deeper. Make sure you subscribe if you want more content like this, because there is a lot more to explore in this world, and I am absolutely not done talking about it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.